Hello. Thank you for listening to our conversation today. As we know, life is a journey and we continually evolve as we go through the journey. There are different milestones which come along with the barriers we encounter. My guest today is Stephani J, is one of such person who has evolved in her journey of helping others and discovering herself. Stephani J is an executive professional and life coach. She is a mom of two beautiful girls, a champion of DEI who works on aligning work and life balance. Welcome, Stephani. How are
Hi,
you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us about what your journey has been.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Stephani J. I'm an executive professional and life coach. And so that's who I am. That's what I'm doing now. I am certified. I am qualified through my experiences and my journey, and I'm certified on paper as well. So got to have both. So I've lived it, I've experienced it, I've mentored it, and now I get the opportunity to pay it forward and help other people get to that safe space within their workplace and provide that work-life balance. But my journey up until this point has actually led me to doing life coaching full time. I started full time with life coaching actually this year. And since I answered the call, everything around has been about alignment, from my corporate clients to my executive one-on-one coaching. Everything has been literally, it's been God sent. It's been a purposeful journey. So just a little bit about me taking it back. I have a 15-year career in the financial industry. My my journey, I'm twofold, right? So I have this financial background, but I'm also an undercover creative. So I like to tap into both styles. With if people don't understand that creatives are all awesome in the workplace, you need to tap into more creatives. It definitely helps. But I was able to create those type of experiences within every organization I was a part of. I never really desired to go up the corporate ladder. And I have a whole story and I have a book coming up about that. It's called The Executive Order. I'm finishing up that now, but I decided to take a lateral step. So I wanted to experience finance in different arenas. I started in government, in my local government, and then I moved over to entertainment with CNN. So I was able to capture that. So yeah, that's more of entertainment. And then from there, I went to university. So Emory University, clinical trials, the medical industry, along with handling doctors, grant management. I really tapped into that. And I ended my career. I resigned my last career with a global tech company. So that's my interesting journey. But one thing I can say that I enjoy doing in every single position is I enjoy cross-team collaborations. I enjoy creating a safe space for people because the environment was typically very stressful. So that was my thing. And so with my last company I worked for, when the pandemic really hit hard, I just had to search deeper because I'm like, okay, this is something is missing. At the time, I was voted as the co-chair of our DEI for my job. And so we revamped the whole concept where we would celebrate cultural holidays and we had our culture calendar because, again, we were a global company. Now we wanted to talk about real things. So we created less talk sessions. We wanted to get people to trust in the HR department. We wanted people to trust in their management team, their leadership team. And what way to do that is to get people talking. People were able to speak about systemic racism and not feel defensive or making that comment, or talk about privilege, talk about bias, talk about colorism in an environment. Of course, it was virtual because we had people calling in from all over the world, right? But we were able to create that with leadership, to do polls, to do audits, to see, where we fall in line, because it was important for leadership to understand where we sit as far as where your DEI team, to understand how the employees feel about you, how does the employees feel about the company. And so where I wanted to do that full time, the opportunity wasn't available to me, but it was pulling on me so hard that I had to walk, because the opportunity didn't fit myself. And I didn't want to I enjoy doing finance, but I had this call that was pulling on me. So I had to answer the call. And it's been a tremendous blessing since I've been walking this journey. Now I'm able to get hired to come into someone's organization to create that emergence in leaders training, to get staff and leadership to talk, to commingle, to have that focus group of having that real conversation and having each other to validate each other's thoughts. You may not agree, but you can come up with a common denominator that's going to push the organization forward. So to be able to do something like that full time, it's, I can say that I love what I do. I'm ecstatic. I get excited. I have tons and balls of energy. I'm big on empowerment and empowering others. I'm big on accountability, but I'm just real about what it is you want to see. If you want to be a change, you have to be the change. And I'm definitely a kind of person that holds leadership to the fire if that's the true environment they are looking their staff to have.
So tell us what brought you to finance industry. What was that journey like?
When I started in government, so I got my associate's degree first in business management, but I didn't want to pursue my bachelor's because I didn't know what specific area I wanted to cover. I didn't want to be the typical graduate just to get a degree, just to say I had one. I wanted to be very intentional about my goals and my path. So I was a government contract initially in the finance department. I realized how much I enjoyed it. And so I was like, okay, I think this is something I want to do. Always been great at math. Always been interested in problem solving. I'm always over analytical, methodical. So scenario planning always been my thing. That's what brought me to the finance industry. So no, I'm not the typical. So if you do a DIS assessment, I wouldn't fit the financial industry. I wouldn't fit that industry at all. So I was very atypical because I'm the kind of person I like to move on. I'm a creative and I like to. Most financial people are very studious, can sit in one space all day, very quiet. I'm the exact opposite because I come with energy. I want people get people going. I want people to get people, because again, you have to think about it. This is your home away from home. You're with these people sometimes more than you're with your family. And so if I'm going to be around in this area, it cannot be toxic. It cannot be a place where I feel like I have to be somebody else. I have to be able to be who I am 1000%. I'm able to create those cross-team collaborations, right? Those are things that you won't think people kind of know how to do. I know how to get people talking. I know how to do the icebreakers. I know how to, whether it's leadership or whether it's, I'm able to talk in small or large audiences. So that actually benefited me in the workplace, being in finance, because that's not a typical. So if something needed to change, I need, they're adding, hey, add Stephanie to that team because, she's, I'm big on relationships, building relationships. And when you build relationships, you build trust.
Okay, so this is a side question, but I think our listeners are interested in it. How do you make people talk?
This is actually pretty easy. People deal with them based on what they do. Nobody ever asks them, how are you? And, having a common denominator, they just want to have a general conversation. It doesn't always have to be about business. When you create that environment, like you're talking to someone on your front porch, you create that arena and you can open the door to anything. I like to make people smile. You got to have the personality. If that's not your thing, I'm very forthcoming about who I am. Again, when you walk very unapologetic, you want to get people talking, but you find some kind of common interest, and you focus on the person and not the role. You tap into the human being and not what they do. And, you create that level of trust in relationship.
That is you who you present yourself. If the other person is not ready to walk into that space because of their own experiences, what is your suggestion for them?
You have to kind of let them lead. You have to let a person, because again, most people, when you're dealing with not just executive team, if you're just having executive coaching one-on-one, you have to build that level of trust. Mm-hmm. So in building that level of trust, one, personal experiences alone, like that kind of eases the tension. If I'm with someone who's a mom who has children, hands down, that's the easy one. If I'm with someone who is maybe single, but she's a female, that's the easy one. It's like, so I understand what they have to go through, how many people that they have to think for. So if you have some type of resolution to what they're experiencing, that's going to crack the case.
You bring an important point in. It is about lived experiences of yours and the person you are in conversation with,
Yeah.
and how you align with each other and how you understand and empathize with that situation.
If I'm approaching an executive, I should know who they are.
Okay. But that executive, for example, might see you not having the same lived experiences as they have. How do you bridge those gaps? Okay. You might not have the same lived experience as an executive or an executive journey, but you at least understand them at a human level. They might have nothing in common with you. Age, height, color, race, ethnicity, background, but the one common element is he or she is human and you are human. So
we're human. We both bleed the same color. We all hurt. We all have trauma. We all have to navigate this life based on our biases and how we were raised. And you always need somebody to help you navigate that if you get stuck. So the reality is we create this lifestyle of our own, right? Based on our own biases, based on how we were raised, based on whatever we did to make us feel safe. But what if creating that survival mode environment no longer works? Then what you do? What do you do? Who do you call? And how do you continue that? Because at that point, you can't continue this journey the same way, or you're going to burn out. You're going to have a nervous breakdown. You're human. And I feel like executives are the most underserved people because they have to be on all the time. And nobody's really caring about that human side of them.
I heard this saying very early on in my professional career, that executive or a top leader is the loneliest person in the world. They are alone. No one understands their circumstances, what they have to go through, and no one even have an empathy for that reason.
They're human, just like us. When we all leave this earth, we're going the same way. If we can keep that in mind and treat people like human beings, no matter how high or how low you are. If you think about the level of quiet quitting that is happening in the corporate industry, you think about people, just not even just executive team, think about celebrities and people that we admire are committing suicide because they're mentally ill, because they have no one to talk to, because they're lonely. You know, so I think, to be honest with you, there shouldn't be an organization with any type of executive C-suites that don't have a type of executive life coach assigned to the staff. It should always have that. Therapists take you backwards. Life coaching makes sure you are forward and make sure you're not stuck.
Now, when we talk about organizations and leadership and team members in today's world, a lot of turmoil has happened in last 3 years with pandemic, but in last 10 years with the identity and intersectionality of each one of us. And equity and inclusion is coming into play at a massive level, which was not acknowledged and recognized before. How can equity and inclusion plays a meaningful role in the working world?
DEI has to happen. It has to be mandatory if you want people working together, because everybody has to have a sense of belonging. Everybody has to be, it's diversity, equity, inclusion, basically saying, I see you. I'm going to look past my biases. I'm going to look past my privileges, and I'm going to see you. I'm going to create a program to make sure we all win. That's what having a DEI staff member, having a DEI program, and making sure that people understand that this organization represents diversity, equity, and inclusivity. and making sure you have the proper staff, the proper training, like what we did with my previous company, we created an onboarding process. So it was literally part of the onboarding process. So people understood where we stood as a company as it relates to DEI. Everybody wants to feel inclusive. In order to happen, you have to have the right people in place to make sure that appropriateness happens properly in the workplace.
How can a company make sure that this is not just a tokenism and it really happens? And you have talked about the policies and analysis and programs, but after we have done training, we have provided the roadmap, we have done the strategic plan, how can on an ongoing basis it can be ensured that it is continuing?
We wanted to make sure, and I think the goal was to keep people uncomfortable, because it keeps you uncomfortable learning about different people, different ways of living, different cultures. You are always, we're trying to create a level of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So that level of awareness, we don't want it to be a check off your box, right? We wanted to create that second nature level of awareness. And that right there is a learned behavior. That's not something based on your biases you're going to get overnight through one workshop. So having a team in place makes sure you have a calendar of events, some of them mandatory, updating your training schedules, making sure everybody has that mandatory training. It should be a year-round thing. It shouldn't be a one workshop here, there, and have culture and have events that centers around DEI to celebrate the different cultures in your company. To do that, to represent the exclusivity of what DEI is about.
There is a concept of social conformity. For example, two people can be from the same background and same color, same race, but if their socioeconomic status is different from each other, we still don't see
Privilege.
a person from the lower economic status to be equal to us. How, and we can keep on going on the privilege on that. But how is it possible that, or how we can work on, not possible, but how we can continue to work on taking care of that kind of social conformity does not make us stand in our own ways of whatever we are trying to do?
Education. You got to educate yourself. And to be honest with you, you have to want to educate yourself. So I'll give you an example, right? I grew up in an all-Black environment. Okay, I grew up in a very urban, developed environment, right? Statistic, single family, a mom raised the 5 of us. I decided when it was time for me to go to college to go to a multicultural school because I wanted to know how to deal with all types of people, not just my own. And it was important for me to continue to learn about other cultures. And when I realized we're really all the same, we all struggle to some degree, with either our social status or how people see us or how society sees your economic group or your color, or things like that. Like at that point, it's learned behavior has to take over. You have to educate yourself. You have to, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a book, whether it's your company providing training or, doing those Let's Talk sessions, because it's good to hear other people's testimonies. You have to provide that. You have to come, it has to be with the individual, the want to, because everybody doesn't want to. Some people are comfortable living in their bubble, but they're the ones that make it harder for everybody else to actually belong and get along.
When we talk about education, that kind of education also means that it has to be a two-sided education. You can improve yourself. Self-development, I think, is easier if you decide to do that. But then you also have to understand that the other person might not be at the same level of self-development. Right. So be mindful of that fact. But right. So we talked about people and how we can help them and how we can be human for humans. Let's talk about what barriers you have encountered and what lessons you have learned, which people can learn from your experience.
Oh my gosh.
And you can have a whole list of things.
Listen, the reality is I am a minority. I'm a woman and I'm Black and I'm unapologetic. So I have gone through a lot of things within corporate America, but what I can take from every experience is it didn't happen to me. You know, the reality is hurt people hurt people. And I understand that I have a strong personality, and where I may come off asking questions because I actually want to know, it may come off being threatening or whatever have you. I know some people don't like asking questions. Some corporations just don't like you asking questions. Regardless of what it is, I like to show up as me everywhere I go. You have to be able to advocate for yourself. Those are the biggest things that I've learned. I watch a lot of people when leadership, and I always say this, everybody may have the title leader, but they may not be a leader. A leader empowers, it makes sure you win, they set you up for success, okay? And you have some people who, if there's intimidation there, if they don't understand what their role truly is, if they want to have that dictatorship approach or that micromanagement approach, you will never get the best out of your people that way. Some people will fight back, and some people will quietly quit. I was the kind of person that fought back, or I fought for the underdog, or I was the voice to the voiceless, and I ended up being the sacrificial lamb because other people were afraid to speak up for themselves. So I had to get to the point where it's like, you know what? I cannot keep speaking up for other people if they can't back me up as well. So I had to start focusing inward and say, okay, why did God make me like this with this big voice of advocacy? Why did he make me this way? And when I learned just about who I was as an individual, I said, okay, well, I know how to bring people together. I know how to speak to people in authority as a human being, so I use those, I turn those things that people may not be me kind of misfit in the corporate industry, and I just turn those into like my superpowers.
Listening to you actually gave me a question which I have heard from fellow women in different professions who are minority. And the expression I have heard is that strong women of color are put aside faster in any profession and work environments.
We have very strong personalities, and we like to ask questions, and we're not afraid to have conversations, but we may come off being very bold. Let's just go deeper. Think about what we had to deal with as a race. So you have to learn how to be an advocate for yourself. And you got some women that are advocates, and you got some people that are not. But when you see those women that we're perceived as aggressive. We're perceived that we can be doing the same thing a white woman or anybody else is doing, but we're always going to be perceived as the aggressive group.
And that is the point I think that discussion makes, is that it can be exactly same thing which a woman, a non-minority woman in that environment is doing and saying, but they are considered valuable. While giving a suggestion or opinion, and even an advocate for others can put them in a dangerous situation, meaning they can lose their credibility and they can lose their work.
I have to make sure I don't come off being a threat. So I have to come off being very quiet, agreeable, for at least a year. So really don't give your opinions. Just observe for at least a year. Don't give any type of feedback. Play along, get along for at least a year. And then after that, you're spending that first year creating that relationship. It's not, to me, it's not realistic, but that's how we're taught.
That was exactly the advice I was given.
Oh, you were given that too? Wow.
By my mentors, my supporters, my references, all men, really wonderful men from all different race and backgrounds. And they said, Farzana, you have a great brain. You have a really great concepts and ideas. But if you want to continue for a long time in that workplace, do not say a single word.
Don't say a word for at least a year.
Now, for people like us or me, myself also, it is hard when you
It's
are
very hard.
a highly qualified professional adult and you are devalued as a human being. It is very difficult and heartbreaking to perform and succeed in that work environment. And that work environment lose a great talent, great asset, and great potential.
When you're signing up for these jobs, you're signing up for the environments as well. So you got to pick wisely. You don't be driven by money. Money is a tool and that's it. It is not going to bring you happiness. It's not going to bring you to a safe space. You have to do the work and interview these jobs, these environments. You need to ask people on LinkedIn who's probably worked there. I mean, you do your research on the company before you sign up, because at that point, when you say yes to a company or a job, you're signing up for everything that comes along with it. So you have to be intentional before you even walk in the door.
And we need to be advocate not only for ourselves, but we have to be advocate for each other. We have to advocate to be human for humans. And that is the important piece we need to remember in any work we are doing.
That's right. That's
With
awesome. Thanks for sharing.
With that, would like to close the session, and I am sure we will have conversations again. But would you like to say a few words in the end before I thank you and we finish off?
Yes, I want to thank you for this conversation. I think we need more people like us out here being coaches. We're being coaches to the coach, being coaches to the exec, because we need more awareness out here.
Mhm.
And we need more people looking into the humanistic approach of these organizations. No longer can we go to work the same. People are struggling mentally, physically, and emotionally at home, in their personal life and their health. And the last thing they need to do is come to work and put on another mask to mask what they're already going through. So, safe space workplace is my motto. I stand by it. And so as we continue to work with each other, Ms. Farzana and Dr. Farzana, and capture what we need to capture, you have my support 1000%. But you can contact me on LinkedIn. I'm also tapping to my creative side. I have an Instagram, TikTok, where I do a lot of dances because I come from a performing arts background. I am Stephani J. And if you want to talk, if your listeners would like to talk to me, feel free to reach out to me on info@yourstepitupcoach.com.
Thank you, Stephani.
Thank
You have a
you.
wonderful day.
You too.